It's pretty remarkable, isn't it, how sometimes countries, even ones that seem quite different, manage to find real common ground, especially now. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to look closely at one such partnership, the relationship between Singapore and Cambodia. It's evolving, getting stronger, and they're actually marking 60 years of diplomatic ties.
60 years, that's quite a foundation.
It is, and we're drawing mainly from a recent Straits Times piece, which detailed Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong's recent visit to Phnom Penh. So our mission today is to unpack how these two ASEAN nations, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, are, well, moving beyond just standard diplomatic relations.
Right, into areas that are really crucial for the future. Things like sustainability, regional stability.
Exactly. We want to look at the specific, sometimes surprising ways they're collaborating. Hopefully you'll get a real sense of how this kind of international cooperation actually works. All right, so let's dive in. 60 years of relations. The article talks about a strong foundation, mentioning Lee Kuan Yew and King Father Norodom Sihanouk, built on mutual respect, trust, and friendship. How does that history, that long-term connection, actually pave the way for what's happening now?
Well, it's fascinating because that history isn't just symbolic. It translates directly into very real economic connections today. Singapore isn't just, a friendly neighbor.
It's more concrete than that.
Much more. It's one of Cambodia's biggest investors. I think it was ranked third largest foreign investor this year, 2024.
Wow, third largest.
And the trade figures really back that up. Bilateral trade hit, was it $4.83 billion last year? That's up over 7% year on year.
Significant growth.
Definitely. So PM Wong's visit, even though it was short, just one day, I think it was described as meaningful. He met the king, Senate President Hun Sen, PM Hun Manet. It clearly wasn't just a ceremonial thing.
It signals a real intent to deepen those ties.
Exactly. Reaffirming the existing relationship, but also looking forward.
And that's clear, isn't it? They're not just looking back. The article highlights these three main pillars for future collaboration. Very forward-looking.
Yes, and these aren't just vague ideas. They're quite specific strategic moves. They talk about building a greener and more interconnected ASEAN.
Okay, let's talk about the first one, energy. That seems really significant. Singapore planning to import 1 gigawatt of low-carbon electricity from Cambodia. That sounds like a huge amount.
It is. 1 gigawatt is substantial. Think hundreds of thousands of homes potentially powered by that. It's a big deal for Singapore's energy diversification.
And how does this fit regionally?
Well, if you zoom out, this project is basically a key building block for something much bigger. The ASEAN power grid.
Yes, the regional grid.
Exactly. The ambition is to link up all the national electricity networks across ASEAN, allowing countries to trade power much more easily by, I think the target is 2045.
So this Cambodia-Singapore link is like one of the first major connections in that bigger grid.
Precisely. And it's not just talk. Things are already moving. Singapore's Keppel signed an agreement back in 2023 with Cambodia's Royal Group Power specifically for this long-term import deal. So the groundwork is laid.
Okay, so energy is one big piece. Then, closely related is carbon credits, high-quality carbon credits. They're apparently working on an implementation agreement now.
Yes, building on an earlier agreement, a memorandum of understanding. And the goals here are quite broad.
It's not just about emissions, is it? The article mentions mobilizing finance for clean energy, uplifting rural communities, improving livelihoods, and then hitting net zero goals.
That's the crucial part. The high-quality aspect is key. It means these aren't just paper credits. They need rigorous verification to show real additional carbon reductions. But importantly, they're designed, or supposed to be designed, to bring direct social and economic benefits.
So for the average person in those communities, it could mean actual jobs or better infrastructure maybe, not just abstract carbon numbers.
That's the idea. It connects environmental action directly to, well, development goals. It's about making climate finance work for people, not just for the carbon balance sheet. It's a model for how it could work responsibly.
Okay, energy, carbon credits. And the third pillar I mentioned is Agri-Trade. This seems more traditional perhaps, but still vital.
Very vital. You have Cambodia, a key agricultural exporter, and Singapore, which, as we know, imports almost all its food.
A natural fit, you'd think.
It seems like it. The article stresses it's mutually beneficial. Singapore is obviously keen to diversify its food sources. Food security is paramount for them.
And for Cambodia, a reliable buyer.
Exactly. A stable, potentially high-value market like Singapore can really help boost their agricultural sector, maybe encourage more investment in sustainable farming, too. It's practical, leverages strengths.
A classic win-win then.
Seems that way on paper, yes.
Now, beyond these specific projects, there was also a focus on broader regional stuff, strengthening ASEAN itself.
Right. They agreed to keep working on ASEAN's centrality and unity, keeping the group relevant, advancing collective interests. PM Wong mentioned the need for cohesion, open dialogue, peaceful dispute resolution. Especially, he said, in an uncertain global environment.
Which seems more relevant than ever.
Indeed.
And part of that cohesion, it seems, is built on human development. The Singapore Cooperation Program, SCP, came up. Apparently, it's trained nearly 19,000 Cambodian officials.
Yes, that's a remarkable number, and it covers really critical areas: public health, digital governance, public administration.
And there's a dedicated center in Phnom Penh.
That's right, the Cambodia-Singapore Cooperation Center. It's one of 3, part of the initiative for ASEAN integration that started back in 2000.
What's the real impact of training like that? 19,000 officials, that must make a difference.
Absolutely. You could see it as a form of soft power, maybe, but it's fundamentally about long-term partnership, investing in people, in institutions.
So better public services, more efficient government.
Potentially, yes. Better healthcare delivery, maybe smoother digital services, stronger administrative capacity overall. It strengthens the country's foundations from within. It's sharing expertise to help the whole system improve.
And speaking of stability, the article did mention PM Wong expressing some concern about recent border issues between Cambodia and Thailand.
Yes, and noted that neutrally. He apparently encouraged both sides to resolve it peacefully, amicably, in the spirit of Asian solidarity.
Urging de-escalation and using international law.
Right. Standard diplomatic language, but important nonetheless. It highlights that even within ASEAN, there are frictions.
So how does a strong bilateral relationship, like the one we're discussing between Singapore and Cambodia, help in those situations? Does it just set an example?
It does more than just set an example, I think. When you have 2 countries working so closely and pragmatically on shared goals, building that trust over decades.
It creates goodwill.
Exactly. And that goodwill, that proven track record of cooperation, can be leveraged. It reinforces the idea that, as PM Wong apparently said, ASEAN countries cannot afford to let disputes be a source of division.
Especially now.
Especially now. Trusted partners can facilitate dialogue, perhaps subtly push for calm, and keep the focus on the collective interest in peace and integration, which allows these development projects to actually happen.
Looking at Cambodia's journey, the article acknowledges its remarkable strides moving from a post-conflict situation to where it is now, a rapidly developing nation.
It's been a huge transformation over those 60 years.
And now, under PMNA, they have this goal becoming a high-income nation by 2050. That's ambitious.
Very ambitious. And Singapore seems committed to supporting that. PM Wong stated, Singapore will continue to walk alongside Cambodia in this development journey.
That's a strong statement of commitment.
It is. It speaks to that shared confidence, aiming for those win-win outcomes and meaningful benefits for both our people that the article mentions. It's quite a positive narrative of cooperation.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today, we've really seen how this Singapore-Cambodia relationship, rooted in 60 years of history, is now branching out into critical modern areas: clean energy, carbon markets done right, food security.
And these aren't just abstract agreements. They're concrete examples of diplomacy leading to tangible, mutually beneficial projects.
Exactly. They show how trust built over time can fuel real progress.
Which leads us to something for you, the listener, to perhaps think about.
Yeah.
Well, consider how these specific bilateral partnerships, like this detailed one between Singapore and Cambodia, focused on shared challenges like climate or food. How do they contribute beyond just the 2 countries involved?
You mean to the bigger picture, to ASEAN as a whole?
Precisely. Could these kinds of practical problem-solving collaborations be a sort of blueprint, a model for building broader regional stability and resilience, especially when the global picture looks so, uncertain? How does focusing on these shared practical needs foster the unity ASEAN strives for? Something to mull over.